come with me tonight. This is Memorial Day, and it's a cherished day for a lot of us and across the world. I hope you enjoy your own Memorial Day. And it's a special night, I think, because, I've had guests on my show for the past 2 years. And on a few occasions, I've done my own shows without a guest, and that's fine. And tonight, guess what? We're going to be doing that tonight. And I hope you can glean some pretty good information about what I want to talk about tonight. My name is Tom Russell. I'm your host for Life Without Limits. And for anybody who's new to my show, I just want to let you know that if you want to be a supporter of my show, you can go to lifewithoutlimitshow.com. That's lifewithoutlimitshow.com. And if you were interested in ordering my two books, Finding Your True North, A Bully Teen's Journey of Hope, and Nowhere Man, and you get a chance to take a look at what I'm all about. So I appreciate all the support that I've had and received so far from all of you listeners. It's special. I just love doing the show after 2 years. And I've been wanting to do this show for a long time. This particular subject matter about actually writing a book, and it can apply to a lot of different things in your life about wanting to do some things. And for me, writing a book changed my life. It literally changed my life because I was wallowing in mediocrity, and I was just not doing things that I want to do with my life. And until I wrote my first book, I was just I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't doing anything of what I considered value, although other people thought I was. And I want to talk about the reason why I wrote my first book. I was working with, I actually still am working with an organization called 5 Star Life. And we were working with these kids. We were telling these kids that we wanted them to reach for the stars and do some things with your life that I think that of value. And every time I told them that, I was thinking I was being a hypocrite because I wasn't doing it myself. So that's what I wanted to do. I said, finally decided to write a book on bullying because I witnessed it enough, and we were around these middle school kids who were right in the middle of it all the time. And in fact, when I was in middle school, I was put in that position quite a bit. And if anybody can look at me now, I'm a lot different. I fleshed out a little bit. Well, I was pretty thin when I was a kid, and I had this big nose. And people would say things in middle school to me like, you get Pinocchio competition. Your nose arrives in the room 5 minutes before you do. Your nose needs its own zip code. Man, it was all across the board. And that affected me to the point where I never forgot about it. And I put those in my first book. And I talked about what it was like. But I'm not here to talk about me and as far as the book goes, but you've heard enough about that ad nauseum. I understand that. But I want to talk to you about what it's like to write a book and the things you can possibly do to make that decision to write your book. And please note, I am not the highest authority on this. I just want to give you my input of what it's like to write a book and how to get it published and why you want to get published. So I want you to want to focus on that as much as I can. And I think one of the things I get asked from people all the time. I want to write a book, but I don't know blank, blank, blank. They don't know, what to do, what to write about, or they have this fear that nobody wants to read what they write about, and that's legitimate. That's totally legitimate. But the biggest thing is you have to find your why. You have to know why you want to write the book. And, some people have this fantasy that they write a book and thousands and thousands of people are going to want to buy your book, and you do it for the money. You do it for the fame. You do it for the notoriety. And those are all okay. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But the thing is you have to find out what your message that you want to have. If whether it's a nonfiction book or a fiction book, it doesn't really matter, but it's just what your message is going to get out to the people who want to read your book. And that takes a lot of fleshing out because you have this concept, you have this idea of what you want to write about, but all it does is just sit on the top of your head, and there's nothing fleshed out. So you have to have this idea of what the book is going to be about, and that's the hardest part because some people get caught up with you know what 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 is something that nobody's ever written about. Well, you know what? There's 6 million books a day on Amazon. So for you to have a unique idea, um, it's going to be difficult to find something that no one else has written about. But that should never stop you, folks. That should never stop you because your message is important to you, and it's possibly in something that you're writing about. You're going to be able to um, write something that is a value. And if people read this, great. If people don't read this, then that's okay too. But at least you're putting yourself out there. Uh, but before you even decide that you to want to write a book, you need to make an outline. Now, there are some people who think you shouldn't be that structured, but a lot of people like their books to be structured, and the other people say it was too formulaic. If you get stuck with the outline, you're stuck with doing that the way it should be. But you can always do it one of three ways. You can do it extremely detailed with a sentence to every action in each scene. You could do like basic bullet points of the ideas you want to cover, or you can do what's called a draft zero, where you just wing it. But you need to be flexible with your plot because things pop up from time to time. And when I was writing my first book, Finding True North, I had this outline. And with me never writing a book, that was a challenge because I didn't know, where to go from point A to point B just by the outline. But here's what I chose to do when I started writing is uh, everyone's have seen a movie at some point in their lives or watching a TV show or whatever. But when you think in terms of writing, think in terms of writing as a screenplay. And the interesting thing is, I found myself writing at night, like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I envisioned a scene that just lit up in my head, and I followed that theme, even though I had this outline and everything. I said, "Well, let's go this path and see where it goes." But the challenge of obviously with that, if it doesn't follow the plot, you're screwed because you're just bouncing back and forth, not really going where you need to go. But the thing is when you write it as a screenplay, that there's a beginning, middle, and end. But don't get to the end before you start the beginning and the middle. That's an obvious common sense thing. But when you're writing the screenplay, you're just thinking scenes, you're thinking of narrative, you're thinking how the characters are, you're building the plot, and you're building the character quirks and everything like this. You plan this out ahead of time, and so when you actually start writing your book, you're pretty well established where you're going to go with this. But going back to, I probably should have said this to begin with. Whatever topic you're choosing to write about, um, try to research the topic. And I give you an example of what I did. I had this great, fantastic idea of writing this book about a tree, and it was a little sapling, and it started growing and growing, and it felt like it took so long for that tree to build up and prosper and flourish and all this sort of stuff. And meanwhile, you had all these animals and these people would come up to visit the tree, and then of course this is an animated thing, so the tree was able to talk, oddly enough. But it was the communication between the people and the pets and the animals and anyone else that had contact with the tree. They learned about themselves, and in the process, the tree started learning more about themselves to give them, that they had value in the world. I thought, man, that's an excellent idea for a book. And then after researching the topic, I come to realize that a person named Shel Silverstein wrote a book called The Giving Tree, which is the exact kind of storyline that I wanted to talk about. So I decided not to do that book, only because I didn't want to just replicate something that was so popular that that it would be considered plagiarized. But having said all that, I don't think you should stop you from saying, "Hey, I want to write a book." The idea about researching your topic is, you need to have something unique. You need to have something that stands itself away from what other people are doing, and work around it. Even though you have your original idea, it doesn't mean you can't move in different directions. But you can write something that is unique to you. And again, it doesn't really matter what other people think about your book. It matters how you think about your book. So when you start writing the book, a lot of people have this idea that they should have this incredible title where it's just people are just going to draw it in. And what I found with the books that I wrote is I started off with a title idea, and after I started getting into it, I realized, man, that's not what the title. My book is not what the title means, and vice versa. So don't get married to the idea that you have to be stuck with the title of the book. My memoir that I'm working on, that I'm still working on the last chapter. I decided to, and I'm going to stick with this. It's a simple title. It says it's if it is to be, it is up to me, or it's up to me. It's a pretty simple title. And so when you start thinking about a title, it should be 2 or 3 or 4 words. It could be a little bit longer, but if you get too long and you get lost in the book consumer, like, I'll give you an idea. Now, how I learned how to play euchre on an outdoor patio when a sudden tornado crossed my path, carrying my furniture and pets 2 miles away, where they now reside because their new owners have better pet food. That's the title. Obviously, that's an elongated title, but the idea here is to not get caught up with if covering the entire book with a title. And you've seen this before, folks. I know you have, because they'll have a title and have a subtitle. And I shouldn't say that there's anything wrong with that, but you get lost in the title, and people are going to move on. I just want you to think about that. Again, I'm not authority on this, but this is my viewpoint of people overwhelming people with too much information on the front of the book. So you've started writing the book, and I've had so many people say, I got to the first page, and I kept editing it. I kept fixing it over and over and over again, and you forget the reason why you're writing the book. You have to start off with the first page. You've got to do something that is going to knock people out of their socks. You gotta write something that they read that first sentence, they read that first paragraph, and said, "Hey, I like what's going on. I don't know where it's going to go, but I like what's going on." But if it doesn't sound right, move on. It's not about perfection. It really isn't. Because your first draft is never going to be perfect. Sorry, it's not gonna. If it is, you're destined to be a writer. A lot of these books that you write, or any of these authors that are successful, they go through rewrite after rewrite after rewrite. It doesn't mean they don't like what they wrote. That you can write things that you can continue writing, and you're going to be able to get it to a point where you feel comfortable with. but don't get caught up with trying to go back and you write for 2 weeks, and you go back and try to correct things, grammar, and all this sort of stuff. Just don't end up doing that and get caught up with that, because it's going to take you forever. It is literally going to take you forever. And Nora Roberts, she's a famous author, and a lot of you people, if you read that or heard about her, she says you can fix anything but a blank page. Um, and I have to agree. I learned that, and I guess Stephen King said the same thing. Just stop doing it and just move forward. You can do this. And the other thing is don't rush your plot or your story, because quite frequently you think that people might get bored with something, and it depends what the kind of book you're writing. If you're writing a nonfiction book, it kind of writes itself, right? Because either people know about the subject matter, or you have the information available in front of you where you can go talk chronologically about things. But when you're writing a fiction story, man, when you start rushing the plot, people are going to get lost, and it's choppy, and people are going to think that, where's this person going? Where's the character going? Just let it flow organically, because once you start doing that and you get involved with the characters, and that's the thing. When I was writing about my 14-year-old character in the first book, I got immersed in his life. I became Charlie. And when you do that, you can be genuine to the character. You can be genuine to not only Charlie in my book, or any character in your book, but if you feel the emotions of what's going on with the individual, it's going to be more authentic with your readers, and once you start swaying from that, you're going to lose your readers, and then they're going to pick apart all these different plot lines that just don't jive, and also. When you write a book, and if you've read a book, there's tension all the time between the protagonist and somebody else, but don't necessarily solve the situation, whatever it is. I mean, it's a conflict, and there's some kind of resolvement at some point, but not to the end result. But the thing is when what I made that decision, and I've heard this from other writers too, other authors too, is when you make a decision to write the book, you need to know what the end result is going to be. Yeah, it's going to change. It'll change. I can guarantee. In fact, my two books, the ending changed because of the way I was crafting the book and the scenarios and things like this, and that didn't make it wrong. It just, I realized that I wasn't true to my character if I just tied everything up in a nice little ribbon at the end of the book. Because when you, excuse me, let me get my water here. When you watch these Hallmark movies, to give you an idea, when you watch these Hallmark movies, you know how it's going to end. You have these two strangers that get together. Either they don't like each other, or they throw some challenges in their lives, and at the end they're going to get together. Most of those shows, actually, virtually all the movies like that are going to end that way. So when you think about the end result of your book, put up some scenarios you think that are going to be true to the character from the first page to the last page, and it's going to be interesting how things transpire, because what you think is going to be the end doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it's going to end, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I encourage you, if you want to write anything, if you want to be an author, what I highly suggest you be a reader. Any successful author that you look out there, they read all the time. And when I read a book, I look at books differently. I read books differently because, having written a book, I know what character development is, and the narrative, and everything that moves a story along. I watch it and I read that. So when you're reading a book, think of that in terms of I like how that person's doing. I like how the scene transitions from one scene to the next. And each writer is different, obviously, than how they do that. But when you craft your own story, think about that. It has to be a natural transition. And one of the things I've always heard from people, almost to the person, is I don't have time to write. Man, I totally understand that. I can relate. But here's the thing. If once you make that decision about writing your book, there I'm going to say it this I'm going to say it this way so I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes. You can you can put time every single day in doing it, whether it's 15 minutes, whether it's half an hour, whether it's writing 1,000 words in a day, whatever goal you choose to make on that particular day, you stay with it. You schedule it. You say, I'm going to do this on this particular time or this particular day now. But each day is different for each person. So I understand that you schedule yourself differently. But once you get in the habit of doing this, your book is going to start to flourish. I mean, it's going to start to take shape. But what happens is, what the idea about writing the book, Finding Your True North, is in my sense, is I had this goal. My true north was finishing this book. And the minute I wanted to say I wanted to write this book, and the minute I said I was going to finish the book, I had all these obstacles. And each time that I had these obstacles, I said, nope, that's not going to stop me from finishing the book. It may delay me, but man, I tell you what, I was focused. I got the book done in 4 months, and that's really nothing. Really, honestly, it isn't. But the idea here is to say, okay, I'm going to get this done at a certain time. How are you going to fit that in? You got to figure out a way to fit that in and get the book finished. And I remember writing that last page, and it was an incredible feeling. It was an incredible feeling of accomplishment. Not that I knew where the book was going to go, not that I knew it was going to get published anywhere. I just knew I did something that I gave up on myself for 52 stinking years. I said, no, I don't deserve this. I don't feel like I'm worthy of doing this. And I just shoved that in the back of my mind. I said, no, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. I encourage anybody who gets in that block, they feel like, uh, you know, I'm not worthy. I just don't think anybody's going to read this. No, you can't do that. You've got to move forward. And I know that anybody who feels that they have a story in themselves, the only thing that's going to stop you is not your circumstances. It's not this or that. It's going to be you. The only thing that's going to stop you is you. The things that I always tell people is, which days and times you want to write, and how long you want to write. Will you hit a time limit each day, or do you want to reach a certain word count? And be realistic in your goal, because you have jobs, you have kids, anything that's going to give you time distraction. And if you feel any amount of anxiety that you don't have the time, or you're spending too much time in your book, or you're letting other important things in your life go, you're not going to enjoy the writing process. You're going to feel it's a burden. It's just, oh man, it's another day. I got to write. Once you get to that level, normally I say just forge on, just keep going on. But if you start getting burnout, you're going to get dismayed, and you're just going to want to give up. And you don't want to get in that spot. And I personally, I can tell you, I never got to that point, because I can't tell you how much I thrive on putting words on a page and writing anything, whether it's a book or a story or a short story or just anything, just to put it on a page. It's just the creativity that just bursts from me. It's an incredible feeling. So when you start writing your book and you start thinking about things and scenes and things like this, man, it just opens you up to different things. That it's a powerful, powerful thing to write your book. I guarantee you won't regret it. And I have to tell you this, and I still do this on occasion, but I learned this when I was in high school, and I was on the newspaper, and I had this thing about wanting to write these super impressive flowery words to impress people. And I wrote this story about back in the well, I don't know, I guess in the late 70s, early 80s. The big thing was chewing tobacco. And my very first line was, quick, what do you think about when you see someone expectorating? Well, most people don't know. Well, I would hope they would know, but expectorating means spitting. Now, why in the heck would I just throw that word in there when the high school kids could care less what the word expectorate meant? I should have just said spitting. I just wrote the book. I wrote that word to impress people that I could speak or write words that were really flowery. So the bottom line is this, folks: if a small word that defines a longer word, just use a small word. Just don't get caught up with that because it ruins the flow of the book or ruins whatever you're writing. Actually, you don't need to do that. All right. The thing about writing, I talked about think about the scene that you're in. You close your eyes and you think about in the conversations that are going to occur. Um, okay, I'm just going down my list here because I know that I have only a half hour to go here. But when you start talking about uh, finishing your book, you need to hire a good editor. And yeah, the hard part about it is you don't know what kind of editor you want or how much you want to pay to find an editor. But do not, I, oh, I wish I'd known this when I did the first book. Don't use yourself as the editor because you're going to let things fly by because you're reading it with a different lens than somebody from the outside is going to look at. And you're going to have to pay later on down the road. I'll tell you how much some of this costs, and it's different. But if you go on an app called Fiverr, Fiverr, you're going to be able to connect with people who are actually editors of books, and they do cover design, they do formatting, they do anything you want to need to publish your book, to produce your book. You can find somebody in a relatively inexpensive way to get this done. The other thing is designing a book cover. Don't scrimp on that. Really, you've heard the phrase, you can't always judge a book by its cover. That's not true. It really isn't. Although inside the book may be different than the cover. But if you want your book to stand out among the thousands of other books out there, particularly in a bookstore, your cover is going to make the difference. And the other thing is when you want to get to the point where you want to publish your book, you need to save it or convert it on a particular format. It's called EPUB files. They're the most common for ebooks, and they can be accessed by most devices, while MOBI files work best for Amazon authors who are publishing on Kindle. And you can also upload your book as a PDF, but it's going to be needed to be converted into the right form in order to sell most books on these sites. And we're now getting into the part about finding a publisher. You need to check out these online retailers, and you can generally publish for free in a digital format, but some are going to charge you for a fee to include advertising services. And we're going to get into that part about don't get caught up with these vanity publishers who want thousands of dollars, and they're going to get into that. When you get to the point where you're ready to format and upload your book, you need to get an ISBN. And that's the barcode that you see in a book. And particularly if you want to get into a bookstore, you need to have an ISBN. So when they order your book, hopefully, and these bookstores will order your book, they need to have that ISBN. And you could purchase them relatively inexpensively. You can buy more than one ISBN for use, and if you decide you want to write books for a living, you already have the ISBNs. And also get your book copyrighted. And even though there's a law now, I guess, that anything that's written, it's your property, but it's always good to have it officially copyrighted. And those are relatively inexpensive. I don't remember how much it is now, but I think I paid $55 to get it copyrighted. And I discovered that writing a book or actually researching anything, Google is your best friend. So if you want to find out anything about publishing or writing or anything that involves writing a book, Google it, and you're going to find out different things. They're going to answer a lot of all your questions, and that's what I did to do that. But I wouldn't recommend that you just do an ebook release. You could do that, and you could virtually publish your book for free on ebook with Amazon. And but there's, like I said, there's over 6 million books a day on Amazon, so it gets lost in the quagmire of all the other books. And you also have to think how many people you want to reach, and how you're going to do that is, well, let's put it this way, and I was going to get that later on, but you have a choice between traditional publishing or self-publishing. With a traditional publisher, you're running up against the time that you probably don't want to wait. Sometimes it takes a year to 2 years to get your book traditionally published, and even if you were able to get it through a traditional publisher, you're going to have to go. Most times, you have to go through an agent unless you're established, and that's the tough thing, because you think you've got the best book ever written, and trying to go through all these channels of authority, it's just tough to get that, because these agents and these publishers, they see these things all day long. And they're thinking, boy, I've seen this one before, and it goes into file 13. So most people generally go the self-publishing way to do this. And you have to be very careful. And I've done this myself. I didn't fall into that trap. But if you want to go do self-publishing, all it means is basically you're going to do it yourself. You're going to hold the rights to the book, where a traditional publisher holds the rights. The things you need to look out for and not do, these are like scam artists. The company asks for publishing fees. You don't have to pay for publishing fees at all. However, you'll see this a lot, and I'll tell you later on about the cost versus the financial benefit that you're going to get this. They also say, we'll publish your book for you on Amazon. Well, of course that they will, because you can still do that yourself as a self-publisher by doing it for free. You can always go through Amazon, and Amazon's really good. The Kindle Direct Publishing, they do a really good job with that. They're going to charge you for a reading fee. Bag it. No, don't even think about doing that. The publisher will buy you an ISBN. You can always get an ISBN through Bowker.com. The cost is $125, but you can also go through Ingham Sparks with a discount. So don't have a vanity publisher tell you can do that. We will take care of all the marketing because of how we know how difficult it is. Well, of course it is, and I went through the same thing with my publisher, first publisher. He told me the same thing. I will get you so far, but the onus is going to be on you. You're going to need to market your book. And that's done through a variety of things, through advertising, through word of mouth, through social media, through going out and trying to carrying your book and say, hey, would you be interested in carrying my book, Mr. Bookstore owner? You have to end up doing that. A sales rep is going to call you every several hours. You have to sign up for the newsletter with a sales pitch. They think that they can make over-the-mountain promises to get you endorsed by Hollywood. They promise to get your book into Barnes & Noble and other bookstores. And they insist you sign a contract handing over exclusivity. So there's a lot of things, the warning signs. You don't want to do this. So when you get your book published, you can get these print to order, print on demand. So don't order 100 books for yourself unless you have them pre-sold. Don't have an inventory of all these books gathering dust in your garage. You can always order more if you need them. And if you're the type of author who does speaking engagements, you always want to at least have a physical copy versus telling people they can order on Kindle or pick up a copy at so-and-so bookstore. You need to, for those kind of situations, if you're going to a book signing or whatever, you got to have books available. And man, this is going quick. When you price your book, The suggestion is to give your ebook out for free or discounted price for the first 2 weeks, and which is what I did. And people will order the book, and then you start moving in the 99 to 299 category with pricing your book for the ebook, not your paperback. Um, and since you're in charge of how your book hits the market, you control how much it sells for. You look up the current book prices of other authors in your genre, and you price your copies wisely. For instance, most people won't want to pay $25 for an unknown author's nonfiction or fiction book. And make a decision about who you want to give your books to. And I've always struggled with that. My first book was published in 2014, and the bulk of people, I would say probably 90% of the people, they want your book, but they don't want to pay for it. And that's the most awkward situation to be in, because you have your book in hand, you think they want to do it, they want to get it, but they don't want to pay for it. See, the average book cost, this is how mine was, anywhere from $4 to $6. Plus, you have to pay for shipping if you ship it out. Uh, uh, and depending on how you price your book, you're leaving several dollars of your profit on the table. If you're paying, say, like a vanity publisher, $3,000 to $5,000 to publish your book, how many books would you have to sell just to break even? 750 to 1,000 if you're lucky. So if you're giving away 90% of your books, you're never going to get your return on investment. You have to treat it like a business, unfortunately, and people won't value your book as much if it's just given to them. Now, having said all that, that doesn't mean I don't give away books, but you have to kind of pick and choose when you do this. And I've done this to a lot of my guests on my show. Is I'll give them a book, just as a thank you that I'm grateful for them being on my show, and I'm fine with that. Or if it's going to a charity, or it's going to a school, or something like this. But for someone who just wants your book and they don't think that you haven't put value on this, you need to think long and hard before you do this, and you have to tread lightly about how you're going to react to that. Well, it's $15. Oh, okay, thank you. You're going to get that, but don't let that stop you, because again, you're in the when you publish a book, you have to pay for your books, folks. You have to. There's no way around it. You could send them to Amazon, but there's never no guarantee that those are going to buy it. But I'm uncomfortable talking about this only because it doesn't mean I don't think I appreciate the people who have read my book and got my book and didn't pay for it. I'm good with that. But I want everyone to think that they need to think twice about having to just give your book away. Okay, here's something that you talked about making a decision about publishing a book. It's going to cost you. Some form or another is going to cost you. Cover design might be $100 to $600 or less. If you can find something less, fantastic. Professional editing, depending on the book, anywhere from $100 to $1,500. I personally charge, usually depending on the book and how much work I got to do, anywhere from $250 to $500. And I think that's in the ballpark. I think that's fair. Formatting might cost anywhere from $50 to $300. Promotion, $0 where you don't do anything, or $500 or more, depending on how you decide to advertise and things like this. So the biggest thing is that if you want to write the book, you have to be realistic. You can write your book. Jeremiah Clark, I've edited both of his books, and he went through Kindle Direct Publishing, and he got through on the cheap, which is what you really want to do. If you basically all you want to do is write your book, get it published, and put it in the public domain, and you want to put it in Amazon, and that's perfectly fine. That's great, and it's a good idea that you just go ahead and do this, and you buy your own books, and you want to go out there and promote your books. That's great, and that's fine. But I've gone through a lot, and I wish I had more time. I could take another hour doing this. but I think what I enjoyed most about this, I wrote my book. I had it published in 4 months. The second book, it took me 2.5 months, and and the joy that I got in doing this is to hear people come back to me and say, "Hey, this book saved my son's life. This book saved my daughter's life." Uh, those are, I'm not really good at accepting compliments, but when you put your heart and soul in something, as in writing a book, to hear someone compliment you about how it the message that you had with your book, it changes their lives. That's it's a good feeling, and that just kind of propels me to continue wanting to do what I'm doing, whether I'm writing a book or doing this show or doing whatever I can to change society's idea about life. And I'm an empathetic person to a fault. And when I write, that's what I write about. I write about treating people kindly and with uh, great care. And and when I wrote the book, I knew that I wasn't going to let it sit. And that's the thing, when you write a book and you think, well, it's done, great. I had it published, done, great. Your thought process should be, what's next? And it goes back to when I first started the show, is why are you writing a book? Why? Why is it that you feel that it's necessary to write your book? And you have to let that just ruminate in your mind. Okay, I wrote this book for what? Um, I knew that I wasn't going to sit and let that sit down and um, uh, not go anywhere. And it was such a fantastic feeling when I walk into Barnes and Noble and say, "Hey, would you be interested in carrying my book?" Not knowing, I didn't know what I was doing. Are you kidding? I didn't know that I could walk into a Barnes and Noble and say or ask them that had the audacity to think that Barnes and Noble would ever carry my book. Well, they did. They decided to do this, and they said, "Oh, by the way, would you be interested in doing a book signing for Anti-Bullying Month?" Well, of course, I said yes. And that all came about because I got out of my comfort zone and I said, I asked these questions. And the worst no you're ever going to get is the one you never ask. I always say that to people because when you worry about what other people are going to say, you just stop yourself in your tracks. If you can get by rejection, if you can get by people saying, no, I'm not interested, and then you say, okay, you're not interested, so what am I going to do next? And when you start having that mindset of, I've got a valuable book, what am I going to do about trying to get this out to the public? You can do it through social media. You can do it all these different ways to do this. But the journey of writing the book and the journey of marketing your book should never end. I wrote this book in 2014, and I'm still marketing my book, self-marketing my book. And I think it's important because um, I know my book has value. I know both books have value. In fact, I would love to see both these books put into written into for a movie. That's my goal, and I'll never stop wanting to do that. I'll never stop pursuing that. But that's me. That's because I've chosen to go to the next level. And your level is all, it can go right across the board. You can decide what you want to do, how you want to do it. But the bottom line is if you just sit there and then hold that book and say, put in your bookcase and say, I did it. That's fantastic. That is fantastic because you did something that the majority of people can and will never do, is publish a book. So kudos to you for if you've written a book, and kudos to you for people who are thinking about writing a book and they're in the writing process and they're getting to the point where that I can move on, but you just gotta keep moving um, because you put your blood and soul and tears into writing a book, and you deserve it. You deserve the best you can get from what you're doing because uh, people are not going to want to be looking at a book that they think that you don't think is worth it, but it is, and man, it's just a wonderful feeling. And celebrate, just celebrate the idea that you're able to write a book and publish a book. And one thing I want to tell you, because I didn't say this, I ran out of time because there's so much to talk about. When you start looking for self-publishers, there's several. I'm going to give you some ideas here. You can go through KDP, which is formerly CreateSpace, which is how I did my second book. It's Kindle Direct Publishing. You can do Apple Books, Barnes and Noble Press, Rakuten Kobo, Draft 2 Digital, that's Draft the number 2 Digital, Smashwords, Publish Drive, StreetLib, Reedsy, Reedsy, Ingram Spark, Blurb, Blurb, BookBaby, Lulu, BookBub. I mean, those. That's a good way to start it. But there are so many other publishers that are out there that are worthy. But don't, please, I encourage you, don't get involved with spending thousands of dollars for books that will never sell. I shouldn't say never sell. That you won't see the return of investment. And that's my goal. And I want to thank you all for listening to my show tonight, and I hope I planted a seed for you all to want to write your book and to publish your book. And if you have any questions, I encourage you, you can go to my website, lifewithoutlimitshow.com. That's lifewithoutlimitshow.com. And if you want to drop me an email, go ahead and send me an email, and I can help you out as best you can. And I hope it helps. And I understand that some people don't like to leave emails. I'm perfectly fine with that. But if you want to contact me, please contact me, and then I will help you out. I will help you any way I can, because your voice needs to be heard if you're writing a book, and I think it's important. And again, if you want to be a fan of my show, you can again go to lifewithoutlimitshow.com, and you will be able to look at the fan support. I offer 3 tiers. One is if you want to just put forth a dollar or two, that's great. If you want to get a digital ebook of my first book, you can do that as well. And the third tier is you can get a Life Without Limit T-shirt and a digital ebook. And I'm really proud of the website. I had someone, we worked a lot on it, and it's in the process, and then we're going to make improvements on it, and I'm really excited about it. So I hope you all take a chance to look at my website. And I think that's about it, folks. And it's been an incredible journey this past 2 years, and I so enjoy doing this show, and I look forward to it every single Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's been a joy. So as I always end my shows, and I think this is so important, I think everyone should smile infectiously, laugh genuinely, love unconditionally, live courageously. I believe in all of you. I believe all of you are destined for greatness. I believe that anybody can do anything they want in their life as long as they put forth the effort and the desire and the passion. And once you get all 3 of those, there's nothing, absolutely nothing that can stop you. The only thing that can stop you is you. And that's a beautiful thing, because anybody can achieve anything. And I'm proof of that. I am proof of that. So have a great week, folks. And if you're celebrating Memorial Day, I hope you have a great Memorial Day.